I'm on the Wrestling Roundtable.
Welcome to a special edition of the Wrestling Roundtable, because for our 60th show, Jenny Rose, the former Jumpin' Jamelia Kraft of Pro Wrestling Respect, is joining us. I guess now you're Jenny Rose of WSU and Pro Wrestling Deanna and whatever, but we'll get to that, the details. First of all, you've been a fan of 13 years. You started watching wrestling, and that's one thing that I like to bring up because it doesn't really say what kind of fan you are, but it does show you that you've been watching a long time, and especially for wrestlers. You've been wrestling for 2 years. You started training before that, of course, but everyone starts out as a fan, and that's the common bond we all have. We love pro wrestling. So I wanted to at least mention that at first, but when you started training, you started at the ROH Wrestling Academy under Delirious and Daisy Hayes. And what was it that decided for you to choose the ROH school out of all the wrestling schools in the country?
I chose the ROH school because it was more convenient for me. I was 17 when I started. It was 20 minutes from my house. I can't move to, I don't know, California at 17 years old. I graduated high school early. I found a job and I saved up my money and I joined the Ring of Honor school.
Also, Ring of Honor has a reputation, and sometimes that can be scary because I know, for instance, it started off with CM Punk, went to Austin Aries, and then Daniel Bryan, as he's known now, Bryan Danielson, and you think Bryan Danielson's one of the best wrestlers in the world, but people really didn't come out for it. I think they were intimidated. So were you more comfortable going to this one? Did you think you would get a good wrestling training out of it?
Definitely. That's the reason I really came, is because I thought I could get the best wrestling training as possible. From what I knew of the school, I knew all the wrestlers were very good, and it was strictly towards the athleticism of the wrestling. And that's something that I don't think I could get anywhere else.
What do you think was the most difficult part of the training? Because I know a lot of people, when they go into wrestling school, most of them have this idea of, this is what my music's going to be like and my gimmick, and I'm going to do this as my finisher and all this other shit. But they don't know the basics yet. So it can be kind of a big shock for them of what it actually is. What was the most difficult part, or maybe the most surprising part?
Surprising part, I guess, was hitting the mat.
Yeah.
Just getting the wind knocked out of me.
Because a lot of people go into wrestling school and they think they know what a ring's like and they have no idea. What about running the ropes?
Running the ropes is very tough at first. It actually really hurts, you know. Getting used to it was very difficult.
Well, you made it through training and you made it through fine. How did it come about that you were going to be Jumpin' Jamelia Kraft? Why that name? Why that character?
It was pretty much a reflection of Kyoko Inoue, Japanese Joshi legend. And if you look at the outfit, it was inspired by her. It was them that pretty much picked it.
From there, you debuted at Pro Wrestling Respect. That was your first match, and I like to always say is the Rocky story of Pro Wrestling Respect. You got put in there, who was not only, I believe, NWA Women's Champion at the time, but Shimmer Women's Champion at the time. No belts on the line, but this was your first match. So you're thrown to the wolves with mischief. Was it ever intimidating?
It was very intimidating. I was very nervous. I had a lot of family and friends in the audience as well. It made me even more nervous, but definitely tried my best, and Mischief's a very tough opponent. I respect her very much. I'm very lucky to get that as my first match. And
you can see that match on Pro Wrestling Respect 1 Inaugural, available on GoFightLive.tv for download, or you can get the DVD at WrestlingRoundtable.com or ProWrestlingRespect.com. But how did it feel going in there with a veteran? Because was she cordial? Did she not try and take advantage of you? Was she very open to, I know this is this girl's first match and let's make it as best as possible?
You know, she was wonderful. As much as she's done, she's just very humble, very inspiring as a wrestler. I really look up to her. Definitely.
She's certainly not the only name that you were put in there with, because from there you also got some spots on Ring of Honor shows. You went to other places, other indies in the country, and you were in there with like Sarah Del Rey, Daisy Hayes, who trained you, of course. So was everyone like that? Was everyone welcoming?
Definitely. More welcoming than I would have ever imagined. I mean, I think they saw that I was a very hard-working girl. I was very serious about wrestling, and they were very good to me. They're all very good to me. Definitely appreciate it.
Well, that Sarah Del Rey match was in Ring of Honor, and that's what I wanted to touch on next, because you go from the Burlington Armory, where it's full of your friends and family who appreciate you and like you, but then you go to the Ring of Honor audience. So it's much bigger venue, more people, and people who don't know you as well.
No,
so how was the difference there? Was Ring of Honor as welcoming, or how did the fans react to you?
I think because I was from Philadelphia, they weren't too hard on me. I mean, I honestly don't remember much. All I remember is the match and just, getting my ass kicked. But other than that, I don't really think the fans were too bad. The fans weren't really booing me. They were just it was just so quick that it's like, the fans are expecting me to lose. They're expecting me to get my ass kicked. But I think they were caught off guard at how I kept trying. I just had that heart and I just kept giving my all. I think they were caught off guard with that.
Well, I want to ask if you were caught off guard by something, or if you suspected something, maybe because you were all over the country doing different wrestling shows and everything. It's a male-dominated sport, and unless you're going to a women's specific show like Shimmer or WSU or whatever, it's going to be a sausage fest that you're around, essentially. So how is it being a woman in that sort of environment? Is everyone friendly, or do you think it's maybe to your face, and as soon as you leave the room, they're all talking about your ass and shit?
Well, from my experience, it's a little bit of both. I didn't get in the business to
be that.
Definitely. I started young. I think a lot of people didn't know how old I really was when I first started. I was 17. I think a lot of the guys didn't even care. But
you were one of the boys?
Definitely. I mean, I think for the most part, they all treated me like I was one of the boys, definitely. Especially the Respect crew.
Do you think that's an indie phenomenon? Because if you're an indie women's wrestler, you must really love it. You must really be a wrestling fan. It's not like WWE Diva Search years ago where they get these models and train them to be wrestlers.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Do you think they know that you're there because you are a fan and you want to be there? You really want to be a wrestler?
Absolutely.
You respect your craft?
Absolutely.
Jamelia Craft?
Absolutely. Definitely.
Well, how was the Shimmer experience? Because Shimmer still, even to this day, has the reputation of being, oh, that's going to have real women's wrestling, and up and down the card, that's what it's about. How was Shimmer for you?
I felt right at home at Shimmer. Daisy's from Shimmer. I remember watching a bunch of Shimmer DVDs at the school. I felt right at home. It was very nerve-wracking, though. I mean, my first match was against Mercedes Martinez, and she's a hell of an opponent. She's amazing.
I hate to bring it down again, but I think a lot of the Shimmer wrestlers know that a lot of the audience that buys this stuff, I think, are Shimmer creeps. The type that probably freeze frame every little moment where your tights go up a little bit. Do you think that a lot of the wrestlers know that? Do they care, or is it just at the end of the day a payday?
I think they know, but I think in their heart they just want to have great wrestling matches. I think that's
just a byproduct to them.
Definitely. I think everyone's mentality at Shimmer is just to go out there and have competitive wrestling matches.
And I'm not to say that that's all the Shimmer audience. There are like 2 people who buy the DVDs because they actually appreciate and like women's wrestling. How do you think women's wrestling is in the year 2012, though? Because now the rumor is they're even debating whether to have a Divas match at WrestleMania or not, and we're a far cry from the prominence that it used to be. And now everyone's like, we all know the only wrestlers that they really have are Beth Phoenix, Karma, and Natalya, and they're making Natalya fart. So how much respect do you think maybe they've lost in the past few years? Because a lot of these broads can't fucking wrestle. And you can tell by the 1 minute that they give them on Raw, and they fuck up the basic shit that they are even given. So how do you think the perception of women's wrestling is now? Is it still TNA?
Definitely is. It's all up to WWE. They could easily change it within a week if they wanted to. They could easily have a 5 to 10 minute women's wrestling match. It's all on them. But I don't watch WWE that much anymore. I just don't have the time anymore. My mentality changed once I started wrestling.
How did it change?
I don't watch it consistently. I'm more about the wrestling.
The craft of it.
Definitely.
Keep coming back to craft.
I'm more about the crafts and the athleticism now, and my whole mentality has changed. So.
Well, we have seen the Knockouts, the TNA's version, that they are actually the highest rated segment pretty much every week. Again, it was like that with Gail Kim and Awesome or Amazing Kong, and now I don't know if it's Gail Kim being back again, but they're outdrawing, just as far as audience numbers in the quarters, Hulk Hogan and their biggest stars. So what do you think it says? They seem to treat it a little more respectfully than WWE does. So we've seen that every once in a while, a women's title match can main event a show. Lita and Trish, or Lita and Stephanie. In TNA's case, Kong and Gail Kim. Do you think that's like a little glimpse into what could be?
It's possible. Anything's possible. But I mean, it goes to show just how many people are interested in women's wrestling. And I think if you bring it back, it's going to make people really want to see it more because they don't see it like that. They should bring women's wrestling back for sure.
Well, we're going to bring this talk back after a break. Coming up next, more with Jenny Rose.
皆さんこんにちは、プロレスリングノアの健太です、レスリングラウンドテーブル絶対見逃さないように。
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. Join us on WrestlingRoundtable.com. From there, if you're not looking at the message board, you're not looking at the columns, bios, and video, audio, everything we have at WrestlingRoundtable.com, you can get the links to all our social networking sites. We're on iTunes, Go Fight Live, 2 Facebook groups, Twitter, YouTube, and of course Blog Talk Radio, where Jenny Rose joined us for her first interview since coming back from Japan recently in December, and you can get the archives at WrestlingRoundtable.com. But speaking of Japan, we talked to you when you came back. Don't want to cover the same ground. We're going to cover some different questions here. Now, the first one is, you started off as Jumpin' Jamelia Kraft, got the mask and everything. But then, you're Jenny Rose. What brought that about? Why the name change?
Well, Jamelia Kraft was all a tribute to Kyoko Inoue, and Pro Wrestling Deanna is owned by Kyoko Inoue, who I actually ended up working for over there. It was pretty much Deanna's decision to change my name and make me Jenny Rose, and hey, whatever they wanted. I felt very comfortable with it.
But you've stuck with it since coming back to America, so you must like it.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, what was Japan like? And I don't even mean in a wrestling sense. Just a little girl from Philadelphia. Was it a real culture shock going over and living in Japan?
Definitely. Everyone's very polite over there. It's very clean. I was very caught off guard by all that. Just those 2 things.
So Philadelphia's not clean and polite?
Not at all. It was a wonderful experience. I loved it very low. It's just amazing being there and just experiencing the different culture. Very amazing experience.
Well, let's talk about how different the wrestling was, though. I think we all know by now the reputation of Japanese fans to be a lot more polite and courteous and quiet, as opposed to American fans who are cheering, whatever. A Japanese match, some, depending on the venue, it's almost like no one's there. So, did you experience that firsthand?
Yeah, my first match there, I noticed the fans were just very quiet, and then all of a sudden they'll all start clapping. They're just the sweetest people I've ever met over there, and very caught off guard by it.
Being that you were trained in America, you're trained to get a reaction, to get a rise out of fans. So did you feel like in mid-match, when they were being quiet, maybe you were doing something wrong, or did you expect it?
I expected it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I watched a lot of Japanese matches to understand that, and I didn't take it as a bad thing at all.
How was the training compared to American wrestling?
The training's very tough over there. I mean, it's tough in America. I mean, but in Japan, as far as my experience, I trained about 8 hours a day, nonstop. So when I'd get home, I'd just be so tired. I never felt so tired of my life than when I was in Japan.
How about the language barrier? Because I think a lot of people might get the impression, oh, how can they call their match when they don't speak the same language? But it turns out that a lot of the same words, or at least variations of them, are used in Japan, like instead of lariat, lariato, or whatever it might be. So was there a lot of difficulty working with your Japanese opponents?
Wrestling's wrestling, but no.
And it's not as different as Mexico, where they work another side of the body completely with the arm. Everything's still on the left.
It depends on the wrestler.
Oh,
it depends on the wrestler. That's one thing I realized, definitely.
What was your favorite match over there?
It's very hard to say. A standout for me right now would be against Dump Matsumoto at a happy hour show. It's amazing.
Happy hour! You corrected me on the show. I thought you were going to do it.
I was waiting for you to notice it.
Excuse me. Well,
you remembered.
So you got to be in the ring with some name wrestlers in America, Sarah Del Rey, etc., and now you're in the ring with one of my favorite wrestling names of all time, Dump Matsumoto. So you were in there with a legend of Japanese women's wrestling, or Joshi. Yeah, was that a seminal moment for you? Did you feel like you made it?
Definitely. I felt like I made it my first match there. And then, I mean...
Just the fact you were there.
Definitely. And then my first match, Kyoko Inoue, she was my second. It was just a very surreal experience. And she's a wonderful person. I mean, she came to America back in June, and I remember we had a talk about me joining Deanna, of course, with Sumi Sakai as a translator, and one thing she said to me was that she hopes to make my dreams come true in Japan, and she definitely kept her word. Yeah.
Would you say, not that it may necessarily be a requirement, we've seen a lot of great wrestlers come up in the developmental system of WWE between Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar and those sort of guys, they've maybe got a different lineage and pedigree than other wrestlers, but would you say that it's almost a requirement that you have to wrestle at some point in Japan to be a real master of your craft?
I think it adds a lot to it. As far as I know, a lot of my favorite wrestlers and the guys that have the reputation of being a serious wrestler have all competed in Japan. Guys like Chris Jericho, who is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I remember watching his DVDs and remember thinking, they always bring back Japan no matter what. It's an honor to wrestle in Japan, and I think it's important.
And the fans remember them for it too.
Definitely.
So you just came back recently, a few months ago. What you been up to since?
Been training hard, been wrestling, mostly for WSU.
That's Women's Superstars
Uncensored, yes.
Uncensored.
Yep.
We've covered a lot of ground in your short but eventful wrestling career, and it doesn't seem like you're slowing down. I know you'd love to go back to Japan, right?
Oh, definitely. It's going to happen again.
And
definitely.
you're all right, great. Well, and you're keeping yourself active here.
Definitely.
But what are your long-term goals? We've talked about WWE and what they are and how you may not necessarily agree with their perception, but they are also money.
Definitely.
A lot of wrestlers may have that impression, oh, we love our craft and stuff, but they also need a paycheck. And that's why a lot of these guys end up going to WWE or TNA or signing somewhere because that's your income, that's your livelihood. So
it was because of WWE that I became a fan of wrestling.
Right.
But I was just lucky enough to be able to compete in Japan where my outlook changed.
Going forward, what is your long-term goal? Do you have one? Where do you see yourself in a few years in pro wrestling?
Honestly, I just want to keep having fun. As long as I'm happy, that's all that matters to me. I just want to keep having fun. I enjoy what I do.
And hopefully everybody can get to that spot in their life.
Definitely.
It is one life to live. Hopefully it's a fun one, and hopefully you've had fun with our one-on-one with Jenny Rose. So find out more about Wrestling Roundtable on WrestlingRoundtable.com. For Jenny Rose, I'm the host, Eric Santamaria. Thank you, and join us next time.